This is going to be a very serious shir tonight.
I can see that.
Very important. Unfortunately, people can't really see how well everyone came dressed. I'm actually very impressed. So we had some questions that we left off last week. Very, very pertinent to this week's parsha. I don't remember exactly what we spoke about last week. Did you? And having had some wine, even less so now than before. But nevertheless, it's always good to repeat things. I always find that people don't remember things anyhow after a shir, usually, unless they take notes, and even then they don't remember. So the average memory span, the Gemara says you forget things after 1 year, but I find that people forget shirim after 3 minutes. So you can basically do the exact same shir from week to week, and most people won't even notice it. That sounds a little bit familiar. I know he probably said that before, sometime before the past. Anyhow, the amazing thing is that all of life in this week's parsha, all of life comes down to this week's parsha, at least the little Alef at the end of the word Vayikra. Small, little, elevated Alef. It's incredible. Just one little Alef separates the men from the boys, separates the Nevi'im from the non-Nevi'im, right? Separates the Jewish people from the rest of the world, separates the believers, the Maiminim, from the non-Maiminim. It's like one little Alef. The question is, obviously it has to be raised and smaller so that you can distinguish between the rest of the word. And it's what that little Alef being separate indicates the word Vayikra as being separate from the word Vayikra. As Rashi explains, Vayikra means from the word mikra, which means accident or happenstance, right? That's the word happenstance. Other things happen. Happenstance, right? Yeah. That coincidence, random and accidents. Non-hashgacha pratis. Non-hashgacha pratis. And it's a lashon of tumah, as Rashi points out, because when a person disconnects himself from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, results in tumah. That's the reality of tumah. When did tumah come to existence? Tumah came into existence when Adam Rishon brought death into the world. When he made the mistake of eating from the Eitzadas Tova Ra, he brought death into the world. That brought tumah. The av tumah is death. It's misa, right? So that's the cause of it. What specifically caused it was the fact that he broke his commitment to Kodesh Baruch Hu. When you break a commitment, you distance yourself from somebody in the relationship. If you don't keep your word, if you're disloyal at any level, automatically it creates a distance. You can be standing physically from each other the same distance as you were before, but psychologically, emotionally, it creates a distance. When Adam Rishon made the mistake of eating from the Eitzadas Tova Ra and violated the commandment not to do so, it created distance. And the death, the Misa resulted, the Tumah resulted. So Tumah is always a function of a disconnect from a Kodesh Baruch Hu. The greater the disconnect, the greater the Tumah is going to be. So obviously, by death, it's the ultimate disconnect in this world. The neshama will still be connected because the neshama is not going to be anyhow tamid b'chlal in any way at any point in time. But the guf becomes tamid because it has no connection to Kodesh Baruch Hu. Then you have hilchos nida and you have tsaras and various different things, and each one basically is a different level of being separate from Kodesh Baruch Hu results in tumah. So Bilam, who Kodesh Baruch Hu appeared to just whenever Kodesh Baruch Hu decided it was going to happen, as opposed to being able to summon the relationship like Moshe Rabbeinu was able to do on an ongoing basis, had to be ready the entire time, because always in communication with the Kodesh Baruch Hu was online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that's the word Vayikra, that little Alef. So the Alef being separate and being small is ki'ilu, basically like the is it to say that it's the reality of Kodesh Baruch Hu's presence in the world is small on one level, on one hand, and has to be pursued. You have to go after, to look for it, to investigate for it. The word Yonah, for example, which means dove, and the Jewish people are compared to a Yonah, a dove, that's the animal they're always compared to, has the word Yavan with the letter Hey, right? And if you look at the word Yavan, which of course is Greece, right, the Greeks, right, you have a Yud, then a Vav, then a Nun, right, that's Yavan. And it represents the investigation into the world, into hashgacha pratis, into existence. So you start with the yud, and if it's not enough, you go a little bit further. The vav goes a little bit deeper. The nun sufi goes deeper yet, but that's where they stop. If there are no answers, by the time they get to the bottom of the nun, that's where they stop. That's yavan. Israel has the hey at the end. It's a Kodesh Baruch Hu. You go as far as you can with your mind, with your brain, understand and investigate creation to get to the point. If there's no answer to the question, go back to Kosh Baruch Hu again. Go back to the Hey. Sion is the same idea. Sion is the tzadi, right, with the Yavin built into it. So we believe in investigation. We believe in using science to understand the world better. We believe in medicine. We believe in all the advancements of modern technology as much as they can be used to get to the bottom line and understand truth better. It's all part of our reality as well, but with one stipulation, one caveat in the end. And that is, if you get to a point where things don't make sense anymore, you go back to the tzadi. We actually start with the tzadi. Start with the tzadi, as like the concept of being a tzadi, is the idea of starting with the Yitzhak Chaim first and going to the Yitzhak Das Tov. Because as we said before, the prohibition to eat from the Yitzhak Das Tov was not an eternal one. It was not meant to go on forever. It was going to be at some point that Adam would be able to eat from the Yitzhak Das Tov once Shabbos came in. Shabbos would have been matari him, and Shabbos was the darga, was the result of the Yitzhak Chaim. So basically the Yitzhak Das Tov becomes permissible to a person who starts off with the Yitzhak Chaim. Because you learn to eat from the Yitzhak Chaim first, then whatever knowledge, the tree of knowledge of good and evil is going to give to you, is going to enhance your connection to Kodesh Baruch Hu and your relationship to Kodesh Baruch Hu, and therefore make you stronger. So you start with the tzadi, and then you can go to the Yavon aspect of it, right? Or if you start with the Yavon aspect, you can only do it knowing full well that if you get to a point you can understand something, then basically you have to go back to Kodesh Baruch Hu. After giving a shir about the Yitzhak Das Tov Ra and Yitzhak Chaim, I bought the magazine that week because the article, the front page article was What Does Science Teach Us About God? 1992. That's when the article came out. It was December 31st, it could be the last issue.
Was it Time or?
Time magazine.
Yeah.
Time magazine. And they interviewed people like Gerald Schroeder and other, believers and non-believers. Anyhow, they had both camps. Mm-hmm. And the article very astutely brought the entire discussion down because they were dealing with the issue about how can some scientists say yes to creation as described by the Torah, and some scientists say no. What does it come down to? Because, for example, if you're comparing intelligence, in other words, we look at one group of scientists and they are not so smart, and the other group of scientists are brilliant. So you say, well, the brilliant ones, they have it, right? Meaning that the smarter ones you can go with the smartest. If they say yes, believe in God, you go with them. If they say don't believe in God, you go with them because they're smart. That's where they come to their conclusion. But it turns out that you have brilliant scientists on both sides of the line. Both sides of the line. So we can't make a decision based upon that. Maybe it's the evidence. Maybe it's the information. Maybe one camp has better or more information about the situation than the other one. They're both brilliant, but it's all based upon evidence. So if it turns out that one group has more evidence or better evidence, you say go with that group. If they say believe, you believe. If they say don't believe, you don't believe. That's the way basically it would go. But it turns out, of course, they all have the same evidence. They're all looking at the same information. So you have brilliant people with the same information. What makes one person a believer and one person not a believer? It's a big question. It's a very important question because a lot is riding on this. The future of mankind. And what he thinks is riding this because if it turns out that God does exist, and he does, right? It turns out that God does exist and you don't believe, that's if, start, Noah, build me an ark. It's like, here it comes, it's going to come again, right? If it turns out that we do believe in God's there, well, that, it's going to be happy for everybody in the end. That's the good news. So they asked the question astutely, and they came up with a conclusion. And they said it seems that the fundamental difference between the two camps is whether you're only looking at the details or the big picture. That's where I got the difficult, right? Mm-hmm. Either the details, if you're looking at just the details themselves, right, then basically it's like looking at different strands of a tapestry. You walk close up to a tapestry on the wall, you look right into it, and you just see red strands and blue strands and green strands and yellow strands basically, but no picture, no rhyme and reason. Like, why are they all connected like that? But if you step back, says the article, and you look at the big picture, you take into view everything, every last aspect of it, a pattern begins to emerge. That's the key word, pattern. Pattern is always important, design. These are the key words over here. A pattern begins to emerge that suggests something divine about the way the world was made. And that's the whole thing. Whether you're a detailed person or you are a a big picture person, a small picture person versus a big picture person. That was the whole distinction the article made, and it blew me away.
Comes down to their eyesight.
Yeah, it blew me away. Why? Because basically that's exactly the distinction between the Eitz Hadas Tov Ra and the Eitz Chaim. The Eitz Hadas Tov Ra is the details of life. Torah Sheba'al Peh is compared to the Eitz Hadas Tov Ra. Right? Memtes Panim the Tahara, Memtes Panim the Tumah, it's all basically rooted in Torah Sheba'al Peh. The whole concept of the Eitz Hadas Tov Ra is basically how the world works. The famous joke or story, whether it's true or it's not true, where a person was sitting in a class in college somewhere, and the professor gave a whole dissertation, and finally a student puts up his hand, and he says, "But why?" So the professor assumes that he didn't quite catch the class. So he goes over some of the details and explains a few more things here and there to make himself clear. So finally the student says, no, but why is it like that? So the professor finally chapped. He realized what the question was being asked. Fine, we can technically break it all down and say, this does this and that does this and this runs like that. And it's like, and take the whole car apart and see how the engine functions. But at the end of the day, why does it function like that? What makes it work like that we can actually get combustion and make the car go? It's an amazing thing when you see how an engine works. It blows me away. We just get into a car, turn the ignition, we drive. There's little things that boom, 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 boom the entire time. There's a spark going, and the cylinders, and it's creating little minor explosions inside the car to get the energy, the power, and you just drive. And it's amazing. Now, but why should things combust? Why does oil combust? Says Rechanim Mendoza's daughter. Right? Why, is there a difference between vinegar and oil? Not really. That's just the way Kodesh Baruch Hu made the world. Right? So, the professor turns and says to the student, he realizes what the student's asking. He says, that's philosophy 101. Here is chemistry 402. Whatever the case may be, whatever the class. Biology. But philosophy, the why behind it, the Eitz Chaim, that's down the hall. Now, when I was growing up, philosophy, I'm still growing up, philosophy was what we called a bird course in college and university. A bird course was you know what a bird course is, right? It's the course you take to get extra credits because it's fun, right? You've got your basic curriculum, but you're missing a few credits. What can I do that won't be too taxing on me? So you took philosophy, right? Because you go there, it's chafif. You go there, sit there, listen, interesting ideas. It's very fascinating. It's not like calculus and biology and all these formulas and chemistry where you can think about things, record things, remember things, by memory. No, but you go to philosophy and you just life. And that's a lot of fun. When I was in university with a course called iconography, it's part of the architecture program. Actually, it was part of the environmental study program that architects had to take in the first 3 years. And the average mark was between basically D and F. It was and the exams were basically just one question, and you wrote a paragraph. Either you were on the mark or you were off the mark. And you also knew the tutor very well. That's besides the point. But it was one of the most incredibly fascinating courses that probably, changed the lives of a lot of people in the end. Because the question basically just dealt with why are we here and what are we supposed to do now that we are. It was not a religious course. It wasn't meant to be. The professor more than likely wasn't religious at all. But it was dealing with the philosophical aspect. It was the most difficult course in the end because it was so hard to get a good mark. But it was the most fascinating course because basically it dealt with what life is all about. But people don't want to know sometimes because with that knowledge comes one very important thing: responsibility. Knowledge is responsibility. Specific responsibility. It's responsibility that makes you have to become a partner with the Kodesh Baruch Hu in the fulfillment of Ma'aseh Bereshis on whatever level you can. If you understand what life is about and what you're doing here, you have to then take a role in performing whatever mankind is supposed to be for the sake of achieving the master plan of a Kodesh Baruch Hu. People don't want to deal with that reality. They want to have fun instead. They want to, as we learned from the French, eat, drink, and be merry because tomorrow's Purim. But that is also, it's all wrapped up in the Alef. That's why it's an Alef specifically, because Alef is always an allusion to Kodesh Baruch Hu. It's always an allusion to Neshama. And basically what the Vayikra is saying is everything that Purim is saying. It's all the exact same message. The exact same message. And even though you can rehash it and go over and over and over and over again, The bottom line is that Purim, for the most part, people don't exactly understand what we're doing. Why we do in the end. You're supposed to get intoxicated specifically with wine. You can drink other things. The halacha is, you can have other things, but the mitzvah specifically is with wine because all of the miracles took place with the wine. And the question is, what is at the basis of this? What's the bottom line to all of it, to all of life? What makes a person reach the level of Vayikra as opposed to the level of Vayikra? Because as much as Rashi says Vayikra applies to the Bilims of history, and Vayikra applies to the Moshe Rabbeinu's of history, and we're all saying to ourselves, dressed up as, Jews, chefs, Jewish chefs, right? Jewish fundraisers, right? Lots of them, right? That we'd like to believe that Vayikra applies to us. That we're like a television set with a bad signal. There's times you can see something. There's times you can't. Depends upon the signal. There's times that we're living in the world of Vayikra. On Yom Kippur, for example, we reach the Madrega of Vayikra. On Shabbos, maybe sometimes we get the Madrega of Vayikra. And times we exhibit Bitachon Amunah, we take big strides to be connected to Kosh Baruch Hu, it's Vayikra. Other times when we're panicking, it's Vayikar. We're not having Bitachon Amunah, we're losing our temper, we're doing things that Torah says not to do. As a person who believes in Kosh Baruch Hu, walks with Hashem, that's the level of Vayikar. We fluctuate back and forth. Moshe Rabbeinu was unique in as much as he was able to maintain it on an ongoing basis. Not many people can do that. Tzaddikim do it the majority of the time. That's what makes them tzaddikim. Maybe just a little bit more the majority of the time. The Gemara talks about a tzaddik as being a person who has one more schus than he has chovos, right? It's just like the bounce of a slightly tip in favor. We're all going, wow. That includes me. Mm-hmm. First look at the cheshbon, right? The things that we don't take into account, the Shemayim takes into account, and then we'll find out later on. But at least it tells you that's what defines a tzaddik. Somebody basically who's Vayikra most of the time. So the whole battle in life, the whole question put to the Jew, that we put to ourselves, that Purim is putting to us, and was putting to us because that's what the whole Mishnah was about. Achashverosh was trying to bring us down to the level of Vayikra. That's what Amalek does, right? Parsha Zachor, right in advance of Purim. Amalek's whole thing is Safek. The gematria of Amalek is Safek because Amalek creates Safek in Hashgacha Pratis. And Safek in Hashgacha Pratis doesn't always mean I don't believe in God. It means I believe in God, but most of the time and on this level, and I believe in God up until I balance my bank book. Right? Past then, I'm in a whole different territory, a whole different realm. At what point do I feel like Kosh Baruch Hu has abandoned me? And does he even abandon me in the end? It's a very, very important, precise, message. This more. A very precise message behind the whole concept of the drinking of the wine of Purim itself. That's the whole inyan. Kosh Baruch Hu had. Now, you look at what did Achashverosh do? Read the Gemara. It explains in detail what Achashverosh did. It's a bizarre thing. Right, Vashti, as the Gemara says, she got punished miniged mida. Achashverosh was drunk. Had he not been drunk, he would probably not have done what he did. Right? And that's why he regrets it the next day. He has the morning after syndrome. He realized that he made a big mistake. Right? And he feels bad about it. Because, he likes Vashti to some degree. It was his queen, his wife, and it was a terrible way for her demise. She was beautiful until she grew the tail, and the pimples and all that. But that's besides the point. That's also about the Hashgacha Pratis. But besides that, she was perfectly beautiful, 100%. Right? He loved his wife. She was the source of his power, really. Although getting rid of her kind of solidified his power, but still, it didn't look good in the report card. In the end, to have your queen assassinated because of what? What happened? He demanded. He was bragging. They had all kinds of heads of states. Coming to visit him, this big mishta. Huge, massive party, the Gemara says. All these people come, and Achashverosh says, you got beautiful wives? You should see my wife. Okay, a man might feel like that. And certainly in the secular world, the Gentile world, people might brag about a thing like that. But how many people demand that their wives show up in front of their guests to show off their beauty, especially when she's a queen, on top of all things? And even as mugzam as that is, way more mugzam is the fact he requested her to do that without clothing. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like absolutely bizarre and absurd. And the Gemara says the reason why this happened to her, because Midah Keneged Midah, right, she used to do the same thing with Jewish women. She would demand they also show up for work on Shabbos, and she would make them work without any clothing on. Also a bizarre thing. What was her thinking again? Don't go to that. But still, why would he, so to look at his behavior as a sober person, would that happen? How would we look at a thing like that? I mean, it would just be so obvious something was strangely wrong. Something was strangely miraculous. For Achashverosh as a sober person to do a thing like that could only be if he was possessed. And who would possess him but HaKadosh Baruch Hu and make him do a thing like that? Because leaders have done bizarre things in history. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has made leaders do bizarre things in history, in the past. But he tries not to. Because for the sake of Bechira, for the sake of free will, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants it to be that he does his miracles behind the scenes. Only once in a while, under extreme circumstances, when he has to, for reasons whatever he decides that's the time to do it, will he do overt miracles. Overt?
Open.
What did I say?
Overt.
Open.
Overt. Sound like overt. Overt miracles, right? That's what he'll do. He'll do it, but for the most part, he does not like to do things that way. At all. Always behind, right? So a person says, where was God when I needed him? Where was HaKadosh Baruch Hu when I was in this difficult situation? Well, he was there the entire time. So why didn't he help out? Because you were blocking him. You were in his way. You were running around doing more hishtadlus than you had to do. Or you were panicking more than you had to panic in the end. And you put him in a position where for him to help you out now requires an overt miracle. If you do not provide a B'derech Teva avenue for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to do his thing, it's a miracle for sure. But in a way he could do it that it looked kind of tevedik, then he might not do it. Because if a miracle happens for you that's so out in the open, so revealed, that's going to reduce your Bechira and the Bechira of other people at the same time, requires a very big schus, a very big sorach in the end. We spend so much of our time interfering with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu's hashgacha. Because we take too much responsibility, or we panic too much, or we don't have enough bitachon emunah, and we try and solve the situation for ourselves by going above and beyond what's necessary. Where tzaddikim, they just do just enough to give as who was it? Rabbi Salant used to say that you just buy one lottery ticket, and that's all you have to do in terms of hishtadlus, because you provided the odds of winning are like 300 million to 1, but at least you provided the one for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So if you do win, someone will say, wow, what a miracle. But people do win the lottery, It does happen. And it happens to some people once in a while. Right? So why shouldn't it happen to this rabbi right now when he has this fantastic Torah and his yeshiva is going to go down, it requires the money. It happens. Derech Teva way. What does the wine do? What did the wine do? It neutralized Achashverosh. It neutralized him. It neutralized his personality. It neutralized his interference of history. He was basically taken out of the picture. He got drunk, and then the HaKadosh Baruch Hu simply used the situation. First, he created it, and he used the situation to manipulate the events so that he would end up doing exactly this thing, inviting Vashti to come in, or actually commanding it, her rejecting it. Of course, even still, it wasn't so pashut. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to make it that Vashti broke out in these tzaras and grew a tail, because she might have come in the end. In spite of the absurdity of the entire situation, she still might have come. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to make a doctor that she would not come in the end. So that was a little bit lamalam heavenly, But even there, people do break up. Maybe she got nervous and broke in hives and can justify and rationalize, and that's what people do all the time, right? Just we mentioned last week that the physicist said that the brain can evolve from neurobiology and a lot of accidents, like that one phrase. There's no God, but a lot of accidents. That's the difference between Vayikra and Vayikra. That's the Alef. They call a lot of accidents, they drop the Alef. We call Hashgacha Pratis, put the Alef back in, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is back in the picture once again. But the wine represents the neutralization of your das to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's das in the end. And that's the whole point of the drinking in Purim itself. Ad lo yada bein aro haman and borach morechai. What does that mean? I mean, to get to a point. Believe me, I've met many people get really drunk, and I've got there to some degree myself. If you ask me that question, I can still answer it. I may stumble over the words a bit, right? I may have to think about it for a second or two. But at the end of the day, I know which one's the cursed one and which one's the blessed one. So what are we talking about? Complete unconsciousness, a lack of consciousness over here? What does the Torah sanction then? The whole is about das, and it says anybody who comes and gets yishuv b'das by drinking wine has the das of their creator, has the das of the shivim zakenim, because the gematria of yain is 70, and the gematria of sod is 70, and when wine goes in, sod comes out, right? Sod comes out, right? That's the ultimate das in the end. That's the ultimate das, the ultimate clarity, the ultimate vision, the ultimate connection. So it's so confusing. What do you mean? And it's Yom Kippurim, right? Yom Kippurim, a day like Purim. Yom Kippur is exactly the opposite that most people treat Purim itself. Purim is a time, I see people try to rip doors off buses on Purim. Literally.
What about doors?
Ripping a door off a bus.
Ripping a door?
Well, they were drunk. They couldn't do it. They just thought they could do it. It's like people go, do the exact opposite. Getting sick, and say things they shouldn't say, regretfully, becoming unconscious, that's how could it be Yom Kippurim? Is it a joke? Well, not really, if we're being told the last holiday to go, the last Chag to be Batal, even after Yom Kippur is Batal, is Purim itself, and it's only a Chag D'Rabbanan in the end. Is Purim. It can't be that. Purim has to be the ultimate level of consciousness. So you feel it. You feel it, right? You have a little bit of wine, Shabbos and Yantiv and Purim, whatever, and you just relax. Your body just starts to relax, And all of a sudden, you haven't forgotten your worries. There's a visa bill to be paid still. When Purim is over, I go right back and to do the mortgage, the visa bill, the kids' schooling, this thing, that thing. It's right there in your head. It's there. You've not forgotten it. But somehow, by getting a little bit inebriated, a little bit drunk, right, your body relaxes and says, I haven't forgotten that, but I don't feel like dealing with it right now. Today is Purim. Today is Purim. So what happened? What just happened? How'd the wine help that? What did you just do? Sometimes problems become so overwhelming that you just shut down. I've had days, who hasn't had a day where it's like, there's just too much going on right now. I can't solve it today. I don't know how to solve it whatsoever. I can't think about it either. It's just wearing me down. I'm just shutting it off, I'm closing the door, I'm having a cup of coffee, I'm having my biscuits, I'm reading a book, and I'm just shutting down. And that's it. They're not banging at my door right now. They're not taking away my car. I don't have a car anyhow, but they're not taking away my kids, that I know of. And it's like, okay. And just put it aside. And somehow, problems work themselves out. So you get into the habit of saying to yourself, I wonder how Kosh Baruch Hu is going to solve my problem this time. I have no idea. I have no solution. I don't have a solution. I don't know. I just know that so many times in the past, I've had problems I did not know how to deal with. And over time, somehow, things work themselves out. Not always the way I planned. Not always the way I thought it should end up in the end. But then again, who says I know what Kosh Baruch Hu's master plans are about? A person's a child, and the child does not work out the way that they plan the child to grow up. They're not the spitting image of the parent or the grandparent or the family. They're not going to go. They're not excelling in yeshiva. They're not getting married. The greatest book in the world. Whatever the situation might be. But who says that's what you're supposed to get in the first place? Everybody is on a journey. Every neshama is on a journey, and every neshama is put where it's put specifically as part of that journey. It's like getting on a train with 5 strangers or 10 strangers. Does anybody assume for 1 second and say, hey, we must be mishpacha? We all got the same car. We all got the same car. The fact that you're sitting in the same car as me must be we're all family. Where are you from? Are you crazy? We lined up. Okay, it's a shkacha practice. We're all the same family over here. But that's what a family's like. Well, you met your wife, okay. She was a complete stranger before you met her at some point in time. Hashkacha brought you together. Not you. Hashkacha did. And eventually got married because of it. Did you choose your children? Did you go shopping together? Did you open a little manual? People are trying to do that today, blue eyes, whatever, right? But even still, there's no guarantees what the child's going to be like. The bottom line is the neshama is the engine. No matter which geneticist promises you what in the end and what the child's going to look like, he cannot guarantee the soul that's going to go into that child. Complete stranger. Put into your family as part of that soul's journey. Now the truth is that neshamas do work to grow together and move together through history a lot of times, and things do flip-flop where the father can be the son can be the father. Man, I can't wait till it's my But hope my father didn't watch this. But it's all more of a hashgacha that the Pinchas Baruch Hu himself works all the details out. And the wine says, you see that feeling you have right now? Where even though you're aware of the issues and the problems, and they haven't gone away because of the wine did not wash away, but what went away? The sense of helplessness. The sense of because Baruch Hu's not there disappears. Somehow you feel good about life anyhow. There's this layer of happiness and joy that's inside it is getting blocked all the time by worry and doubt and all these negative things, and it's forcing you to stand in the way of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who now can't help you because you took away the opportunity to have it happen, but derech teva, we call teva, even though it's a mace in the end. So the wine comes along and says, the whole reason why Purim happened in the first place, because the Jews were overdoing it. The Jews were getting too involved in their lives, too much into the Gashmis, too much into the history. They weren't allowed HaKadosh Baruch Hu to have a relationship with them. Haman came along as an external manifestation of their own doubt. That's why he's Amalek in the end. Their own disconnect from HaKadosh Baruch Hu was manifested by the enemy. So eventually we were snapped back into reality once again. We stood out of the way, and boom, HaKadosh Baruch Hu came in and saved the day. By the way, this is also what he says he says it also in, I think it was Lavavis, in Shar B'Tachon. He said, the ultimate punishment HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives a person for having no B'Tachon Amunah is leaving them to rely upon the thing they rely upon. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says you can rely upon me, and I'll make it happen for you, or you can rely upon whatever else you can rely upon, yourself, your neighbor, your friend, an avodah zarah, whatever. Go ahead, rely upon them, b'vakasha, and see how far you get with it in the end. And that's only with the Baal Pa'or, they're all screaming and cutting themselves and all, they really believed for a while because there was no test. And now they really needed the whole thing. Aliyah's like, go ahead, go. Maybe they're deaf. They can't hear properly, right? He's making the thing a real reality, how false the entire thing is. And then eventually he pours water on his back. And because Baruch Hu shows that, all you have to do is be in the right place at the right time, thinking the right things. Because Baruch Hu will always make it happen. When things fail, historically, it's because Klal Yisrael has gotten in the way. Your second is because Baruch Hu, we have done too much, or too little, also by the way, either way. But we haven't focused on just being what we have to be in that specific situation. And most of the reason is because most people have no idea what they're supposed to be in a given situation. The events just happen to show up and arise, and the person ends up being, whatever they are. There's no hachana. And that's the other message of Purim as well, is that everything in life comes down to preparation. All but hachana. We learn from Shabbos as well. The Gemara in Avodah Zarah says that anybody who prepares Erev Shabbos will eat on Shabbos. Anybody who doesn't prepare Erev Shabbos, what will they eat on Shabbos in the end? So Chazal say it's also much for all of life. If you're prepared in life for situations that arise, then you'll be successful. If you're not prepared, psychologically, emotionally, religiously, you're going to fail the test in the end. And that's ultimately what the Gemara means when it says, Ein Adam Chotel Shnifim Baruch Shtus. A person will only do a chet if he has a ruach shtus. He goes insane. Who in their right mind is going to violate the will of God? Who in their right? If you believe in God, and He's there, the Torah is true, how can you possibly stand there in Yom Kippur and do all chet? You should be free of chet. You'd be crazy to do a chet. No? That's good news. You know why? Because crazy people are pater from mitzvahs. It means every time I do an avera, I'm pater. Gemara, I think the Marsha asked this question in the Gemara. What does it mean? So the answer is a big chiddush, phenomenal chiddush. You are not chayiv because of the chet. Not chayiv because of the chet. At the time of the chet, you're meshugana at that point. What am I chayiv for? For not having prepared yourself. You shouldn't be meshugana when the situation arises. Very simple mashal, right? A person who's on a diet. They want to lose weight. Okay? It's not so easy in the Jewish world. That's where you gain most of your weight. Right? There's a bris, and then another bris. And you start to gain weight after a while. You go to chasna, there's always, especially in chutzlars, way more food than you should ever eat. Just in general, our generation eats way more food than we should be eating. Shabbos after Shabbos after Shabbos. Now, if a person wants to go to diet, it's almost helpless. It's like you have to totally change your eating habits in the end. So you go to a chasna on an empty stomach, forget it, you're finished. I'm going to diet, I'm going to go to the chasna, I won't eat that much. Right. Everybody around you is eating, they're bringing prime rib beef, this, and potatoes on. Okay, I'll just have a little bit. Then you have a second help, or whatever, you're finished. If a person wants to stay in the diet, what do? Before they go, if they really want to stay in the diet, what do? They have a big salad before they leave the house. And they fill themselves up. Because even though you go there and it looks, wow, it smells great, it looks good, the appetite isn't there. You've killed it, you crushed the appetite. No appetite, there's far more control. The Yitzhar doesn't have, what to battle you with in the end. The same is true about life. If you're prepared for what's coming up, with the situation, you anticipate the situation. That's what Yiddishkeit's all about. Anticipation. But that's what Mordechai was all about. That was the difference between Mordechai and the Jewish people of his time. Mordechai kept anticipating. He said, gotta be ready. Don't bother us. You're eroding. You're endangering us. You're making Haman angry. You don't want to kill all of us now because of you. He had a din of Rodov for a while, right? And then, of course, he was right. And we all recognize, actually not all of us, the Megillah ends up by saying, only Rov Echad in the end. It was Jerusalem, the Rov Echad. Only the majority of people could face the truth and be molded to him in the end, right? Mm-hmm. That's Jewish history. But it's all about Hachana. It's all about knowing how to behave, how to work with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, how to work with the Hashgacha Pratis, and not getting in the way of the Kadosh Baruch Hu. On Purim, at least once a year. And that's on Yom Kippur too. That's why it's Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, you do the exact same thing. On Yom Kippur, it's the one, what's unique about Yom Kippur? What's unique about Yom Kippur? So the Gemara brings down in Yuma, the Gematria Satmar is 364. To tell you, the Sat Apr only works, he's a contract. 364 days of the year he works. One day he gets off. Talk about union rules. Yeah. One day he gets off. He would work all 365 if he could, by the way. He doesn't want the day off. Which day does he get off? Yom Kippur. So my Rosh Hashanah used to always tell us, if you still be Yitzhar on Yom Kippur, you can still speak Lashon Hara, you can still, slack off. He said any averas a person does in Yom Kippur is out of habit, not because of the Yitzhar. The Gemara is telling you, you're just used to behaving that way. That's your pattern of life. So therefore, even on Yom Kippur, you still might do it, but everybody improves. Everybody's better on Yom Kippur. Everybody has no Yitzhara. It's Bata. So nobody gets in the way of Hashem on Yom Kippur. And that's what's Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, right, that's what it's all about. But on Purim, we do it the better way. On Yom Kippur, we do it by fasting, becoming like angels because a certain state of Shmaya has put in the world. On Purim, we get a little drunk, get the conductor drunk, in order to feel what it means to get out of the way of Kadosh Baruch Hu, so he can do his thing. Because he will do his thing. And that's what Purim promises. Otherwise, why celebrate it? Why celebrate it? There's been many Yeshuas for Klal Yisrael in history. Why make a holiday out of it? We only make a holiday out of an event in history if the event has a message for every generation from that point onward. Purim says, if you don't interfere with Hashgacha Pratis, you don't get in the way, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will save you, period.